My name is Celestine Lewis. I'm 21 years old. While I was completely unconscious under anesthesia for spinal surgery, I had begged for 2 agonizing years. My own parents transferred every last cent, $31,247.83, from my college fund straight into my sister's account. My mother's text at 9:39 that morning was crystal clear. Do it now while she can't check. They didn't just steal my money. They waited until I was drugged, paralyzed, and utterly helpless, because they truly believed their own daughter was too pathetic, too naive, and too worthless to ever notice or fight back. They thought it was the perfect crime. But the second I opened my eyes, they realized something that destroyed them. The daughter they had just tried to bury alive had been protected all along. And that was the moment everything started to collapse for them. Before I continue, if this story already has you feeling angry on my behalf, please take a second to hit like and subscribe. Only if you genuinely want to hear how my own family tried to destroy me while I was unconscious, and how the one person who actually protected me wasn't even alive anymore. And right now, while you're watching, drop a comment with the word worthless if you've ever been treated like you don't matter by the people who were supposed to love you most. I read every single comment. Now, let me take you back 2 years, to the moment I first realized my own parents had already chosen which daughter deserved to live a better life. I'm a junior at State University, political science major, pre-law track. GPA 3.8. I work 15 hours a week as a research assistant for Professor Whitman in the Constitutional Law Department. I make $14 an hour. I save every penny I can because for the last 3 years, I've been paying my own way through college with student loans and work. My older sister Vanessa is 26. She dropped out of college her junior year after our parents had spent $90,000 on her private out-of-state tuition. She currently lives at home, rent-free, with $45,000 in credit card debt from what she calls her business ventures. First she was going to be an influencer, then a lifestyle blogger, then a wellness coach. None of it worked. She has 847 followers on Instagram, 0 clients, 0 income, and our parents keep paying her bills. This is important because the money they stole from me, the $31,000, wasn't just sitting there doing nothing. It had a very specific purpose. My grandmother Betty Lewis established an educational trust for me in June 2011. I was 6 years old. The trust was irrevocable, which means legally no one, not even my parents, could touch it. It was set up with one purpose: to pay for my senior year of college and my first year of law school. Grandma Betty had been specific about that. I remember overhearing a conversation when I was 11, standing in the hallway outside the kitchen. She was talking to my mom. "The money isn't for all 4 years," Grandma said. "It's for the finish line. They'll support her at first. It's the end they'll sabotage. Make sure she can finish." I didn't understand what she meant then. I do now. Grandma Betty died in September 2021. She was 74. I was 16. At her funeral, I shook hands with a man named Clayton Hughes. He was her attorney. He told me he'd been appointed as the fiduciary trustee of my education fund, and if I ever needed anything, I should call him. I thanked him and forgot about it. I didn't know that handshake would save my life 5 years later. My parents have always favored Vanessa. I'm not saying that to be dramatic. It's just a fact. When we were kids, Vanessa got private piano lessons, art classes, summer theater camp. I got public school activities and hand-me-downs. When Vanessa turned 16, our parents bought her a new Honda CR-V for $28,000 and paid her insurance. When I turned 16, I bought a used Toyota Corolla for $4,500 with money I'd saved from babysitting. I paid my own insurance. When Vanessa went to college, they paid everything. Out-of-state tuition at a private university, $62,000 a year. When I started college, I filled out financial aid forms by myself and took out student loans. I used Grandma Betty's trust fund to cover what the loans didn't, and I worked part-time to cover living expenses. I never complained. I told myself this was just how it was. Vanessa was the creative one, the sensitive one, the one who needed more support. I was the responsible one, the one who'd be fine on her own. I believed that for a long time. But something shifted in the last 2 years. The favoritism went from subtle to blatant, from preference to something that felt like erasure. And it started with my back. I was born with scoliosis. It's a curvature of the spine. For most of my childhood and teenage years, it was manageable. Mild discomfort. I wore a brace for a while in middle school. By the time I got to college, I'd mostly forgotten about it. But in my sophomore year, something changed. The curve started progressing. Fast. By January 2024, I was in constant pain. I couldn't sit through a lecture without my back screaming. I couldn't sleep. I was taking ibuprofen until my stomach hurt worse than my spine. I went to an orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Patel. He measured my curve at 68 degrees. "You need surgery," he said. "Spinal fusion. We can't wait on this. If it progresses past 70 degrees, you're looking at serious complications." I went home and told my parents. My dad frowned. My mom sighed. "How much is the surgery?" my dad asked. "The deductible is $12,000, I said. "Insurance will cover the rest, but we have to pay that up front." My mom shook her head. "We don't have that kind of money right now, sweetie. We're stretched thin." "Can we take out a loan?" I asked. "We can't afford another loan," my dad said. "We're already paying off the house and the cars. Maybe in a year or two, when things settle down." Dr. Patel said I can't wait that long. My mom reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "We'll figure something out. In the meantime, just try to manage the pain the best you can." I believed them. I thought they were telling the truth. So I worked. I picked up extra shifts. I went from 15 hours a week to 25. I saved everything I could. I stopped buying new clothes. I stopped going out with friends. Every dollar went into a savings account labeled surgery fund. By December 2025, I'd saved $6,800. It wasn't $12,000, but it was something. Meanwhile, my pain got worse. By June 2025, my curve had progressed to 70 degrees. I was fainting in the library from the pain. I missed classes. My GPA dropped from 3.9 to 3.8 because I physically couldn't sit through exams. And every time I asked my parents for help, for a loan, for anything, the answer was the same. "We don't have it. We're broke. We're doing the best we can." But here's what I didn't know. While I was working myself to exhaustion, while I was fainting from pain, while I was saving every penny, my parents were spending money on Vanessa. In 2024, they spent $2,200 on a website for her lifestyle blog, $3,500 on a business coaching course for her wellness coaching venture, $850 on a professional photo shoot for her Instagram. In August 2024, they took out a $15,000 home equity line of credit. They told me it was for house repairs. It wasn't. It was to pay down Vanessa's credit card debt. In November 2024, I asked my parents if they could loan me $2,000 so I could see a pain management specialist. They said no. They were tapped out. That same week, they paid $2,100 for Vanessa to take a business coaching course. I found the receipt later. Same week, same bank account. In February 2025, I asked if they could help me pay for physical therapy. $180 per session. I needed 8 sessions. $1,440 total. They said they couldn't afford it. That month, They spent $850 on a branding photo shoot for Vanessa's influencer profile. In June 2025, I asked if they could help me buy a better mattress. My back hurt so badly I couldn't sleep. I found one for $600. They said no. It was a luxury item. That same month, they bought Vanessa a ring light and a new camera for $1,220. In November 2025, I asked my mom if she could cover my pain medication refill. $85. She said she couldn't afford it. I checked my bank account later that week. There was a note from my student loan servicer reminding me I owed $400 by the end of the month. I paid it with money I'd saved for surgery. I found out later, much later when the bank records were subpoenaed, that on November 8, 2025, my parents paid $600 toward Vanessa's visa minimum payment. On November 8, 2025, they told me they couldn't afford $85 for my medication. Same day. I want you to understand this. For 2 years, I thought my parents were struggling. I thought they were doing their best. I thought I was being selfish for asking for help when they clearly didn't have it. I didn't know they had $67,400. I didn't know they'd been spending it on Vanessa the entire time. I didn't know that my pain, my 2 years of suffering, was a choice they made. In December 2025, something changed. I fainted during a lecture. My professor called an ambulance. I woke up in the ER with Dr. Patel standing over me. "Celestine," he said, "your curve is now at 70 degrees. We can't delay this surgery any longer. If we wait, you're risking permanent damage. Paralysis, even." I started crying. "I don't have the money." "What about your parents?" "They don't have it either." Dr. Patel looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "Let me see what I can do. I'll talk to the billing department. We'll figure something out." 3 days later, my mom called me. "Good news," she said. "We found the money for your surgery. We're scheduling it for February 10th. I cried again. But this time, it was relief. I thought they'd found a way. I thought they'd figured it out. I thought maybe they'd taken out another loan, or borrowed from family, or done something, anything, to help me. I didn't know what they'd actually done. On December 28th, my parents opened a joint checking account with Vanessa. They told me about it over leftover Christmas dinner. "We're helping Vanessa rebuild her credit," my mom said, spooning cranberry sauce onto my plate. "She's turning her life around." I smiled. I actually smiled. I was happy for her. 43 days later, that account would receive every cent of my future. The infrastructure of my betrayal, built over holiday dinner. February 10th, 2026. Tuesday morning. I woke up at 5 a.m. My roommate and best friend, Jordan Matthews, drove me to the hospital. We got there at 6:15. My parents were already in the parking lot. My dad was holding a bouquet of grocery store flowers. My mom gave me a hug. "We'll be here when you wake up, sweetheart," she said. I believed her. Jordan stayed with me until 6:45, then left for her morning class. She squeezed my hand before she went. "You're gonna do great," she said. "I'll be back this afternoon." The nurse assigned to me was named Jackie Rodriguez. She was maybe 35, with kind eyes and a warm smile. She held my hand while they put in the IV. "First surgery?" she asked. "Yeah." "You're gonna do great. Dr. Patel is the best. You'll wake up, and this'll all be over." She asked me for my emergency contact information. I gave her my mom's number, then my dad's. "Anyone else?" Jackie asked. "Just in case?" I thought for a second. Then I remembered the trust paperwork I'd signed when I turned 18. There was a requirement to list the trustee as an emergency contact for financial matters. "Clayton Hughes," I said. "He's my grandmother's attorney. He manages a trust fund for me." Jackie wrote it down. I didn't think about it again. At 7:15, they wheeled me into the pre-op room. My parents were there. My mom kissed my forehead. My dad squeezed my shoulder. "We're so proud of you," my dad said. At 7:18, the anesthesiologist administered the anesthesia. I remember the cold feeling spreading up my arm. I remember my mom's face. I remember thinking, "Thank God this is finally happening." The last thing I said before I went under was, "Thank you for everything." I meant it for my parents. I didn't know that in 98 minutes they would prove I should have been thanking someone else entirely. I don't remember the surgery, obviously, but I know exactly what happened while I was unconscious because later, weeks later, Clayton Hughes would walk me through the timeline, minute by minute, with bank records and phone logs and text messages. Here's what happened while titanium rods were being fused to my spine. At 9:39 a.m., my mother sent a text message to my father. They were both sitting in the hospital waiting room. The text said, "Do it now, while she can't check." At 9:43 a.m., my father opened the Chase mobile banking app on his phone. At 9:44 a.m., he logged into my account. Not his account. Mine. The Betty Lewis Educational Trust account. He used credentials I had given him in August 2023, the day I started college. I'd been 18, terrified, overwhelmed. My parents had offered to help me set up my banking. "Just in case of emergencies," my dad had said. "So we can help if something goes wrong." I'd given him my username and password. I'd saved it in his phone notes. I'd trusted him. At 9:46 a.m., my father navigated to the trust account. Balance, $31,247.83. At 9:47 a.m., he initiated a wire transfer from Betty Lewis Educational Trust to Patricia Lewis and Vanessa Lewis Joint Checking Account. Amount, $31,247.83. Every last cent. In the memo line, he typed, "Educational expense reimbursement," as if that would make it legitimate. At 9:48 a.m., the transfer went through. At 9:48 a.m., 2 alerts were sent. Alert number 1 went to my phone, which was sitting face up on the bedside table in the recovery room. The screen lit up, "Wire transfer, minus $31,247.83 to P. Lewis and V. Lewis Joint Checking." Alert number 2 went to an email address I'd never seen, clayton.hughes@hugheslaw.com. The subject line read, "Trust Disbursement Alert, $31,247.83 withdrawn." At 9:52 a.m., Clayton Hughes saw the email. He was in his office, 28 miles away in Campbell. He checked his email every 30 minutes during work hours. This was one of those checks. He opened the alert. He saw the amount. He saw the recipient account. He knew immediately something was wrong. At 9:54 a.m., he called the First Union Bank fraud hotline. At 10:05 a.m., the bank confirmed what he already knew. The withdrawal was unauthorized by the trustee. It went to a non-beneficiary account. Potential fraud. At 10:15 a.m., Clayton called the hospital. "I need the patient advocate office immediately," he said. "There's a financial exploitation in progress." At 10:45 a.m., Clayton Hughes walked into the hospital. He'd driven 35 minutes through morning traffic. He went straight to the patient advocate's office. At 11 a.m., my parents left the hospital. They told Nurse Jackie they were grabbing lunch, be back soon. They didn't come back for 4 hours. At 11:24 a.m., my father's Visa was charged $47.83 at Olive Garden. The receipt, which Clayton would subpoena 6 weeks later, showed 2 entrees, breadsticks, and tiramisu. They were celebrating. While I was still on the operating table, still unconscious, still trusting them, my parents were splitting dessert. At 11:30 a.m., Nurse Jackie walked into the patient advocate's office. She'd been thinking about something all morning. At 9:48, she'd been checking on me in the recovery room, making sure everything was ready for when I came out of surgery. My phone had been sitting on the bedside table. I'd asked her to keep an eye on it in case my school called about my teaching assistant shift. The screen had lit up. She'd glanced at it. Just a glance. Wire transfer, minus $31,247.83 to P. Lewis and V. Lewis joint checking. Jackie had frozen. She'd looked at the amount again. $31,000. Vanessa Lewis. That was my sister's name. I'd mentioned her once during pre-op, when Jackie had asked if I had siblings. Something felt wrong. Jackie had worked in hospitals for 8 years. She'd seen financial abuse before. Usually it was older patients, adult children stealing from elderly parents. But she'd also seen cases with younger patients, vulnerable patients, patients who couldn't defend themselves, patients who were unconscious during surgery. She looked at the emergency contact card clipped to my chart. 3 names: Mom, Dad, Clayton Hughes. Attorney, Betty Lewis Trust. An attorney. For a trust. Jackie had picked up the phone. Now, at 11:30, she was sitting across from Clayton Hughes and the patient advocate, a man named Dennis York. I saw a bank alert on my patient's phone, Jackie said. Large transfer, her sister's name. And the timing felt wrong. She's been in surgery since 7:30. Why would someone move that much money while she's unconscious? Clayton slid a folder across the table. Because they thought she wouldn't be able to stop them. I woke up at 1:45 p.m. The first thing I felt was pain. My throat hurt from the breathing tube. My back hurt. But it was a different kind of hurt, sharper, more localized. My legs were numb. That was normal, they'd told me. Feeling would come back in an hour or two. The first thing I saw was Nurse Jackie. She was standing by my bed and she looked worried. The second thing I saw was 2 men I didn't recognize. One was older, maybe late 50s, wearing a gray suit and reading glasses. He had a kind face, but his expression was serious. The other was younger, maybe 40, wearing a hospital badge that said, Patient Advocate. Miss Lewis, the older man said quietly. My name is Clayton Hughes. I'm the attorney for the Betty Lewis Educational Trust. I need you to stay very calm, but I need you to know something. I was still groggy. I thought I was dreaming. While you were in surgery, he continued, your parents transferred $31,247.83 from your trust account into a joint account with your sister. I stared at him. The words didn't make sense. I don't understand, I said. Clayton pulled a chair closer to my bed. He sat down slowly like he was afraid I'd panic. I'm here because your grandmother made sure you'd be protected, he said. He pulled out his phone and turned it toward me. There was a screenshot of a bank alert. My bank alert. Wire transfer minus $31,247.83 to P. Lewis and V. Lewis joint checking. Timestamp, 9:48 a.m. I looked at the screen. I looked at Clayton. I looked at Nurse Jackie. I don't understand, I said again. Clayton pulled out another phone, a printout of text message records. He'd already subpoenaed them. He'd moved that fast. He pointed to a message sent at 9:39 a.m. From Patricia Lewis. To Daniel Lewis. Message. Do it now while she can't check. I read it 3 times. Do it now while she can't check. My mother had sent that. They used login credentials you'd given them, Clayton said. Probably when you first set up your banking. They accessed your trust account while you were unconscious and moved every cent to an account they'd opened with your sister 6 weeks ago. I felt like I couldn't breathe. But they can't do that, I said. That's my money. It's not your money, Clayton said gently. It's trust money, and they're not allowed to touch it. At all. This isn't a family dispute, Celestine. This is a felony. The room was spinning. Where are they? I asked. They left the hospital at 11 a.m., Dennis York said. They haven't come back. Clayton reached into his briefcase and pulled out a document. It was old, yellowed at the edges. I recognized my grandmother's signature at the bottom. Your grandmother established this trust on June 15, 2011, Clayton said. You were 6 years old. Do you want to know what she wrote? I couldn't speak. I nodded. Clayton read aloud. This trust exists solely for Celestine Marie Lewis's educational advancement. Under no circumstances may funds be diverted to any other beneficiary or purpose. I appoint Clayton Hughes as fiduciary trustee with full authority to monitor, investigate, and pursue legal action against any unauthorized access, including but not limited to access by the minor's parents or guardians. He looked up at me. She knew, he said. 15 years ago, she knew this might happen, and she made sure I'd be watching. I started crying. Not from pain, from something I couldn't even name. Clayton slid the document across my hospital bed, the date at the top, June 15th, 2011. I was 6 years old. Vanessa would have been 11. She came to my office, Clayton said quietly, and told me she didn't trust her son and daughter-in-law with money. She said you'd need protection someday. She made me promise I'd watch. My grandmother had been dead for 5 years. She was still keeping her promise. For the next 3 days, I stayed in the hospital. Jordan came every afternoon and sat with me. She brought me homework from my classes, magazines, snacks from the vending machine. She didn't ask questions. She just sat there. Clayton came every morning. He brought a laptop and showed me things I didn't want to see. Bank records. 5 years of transactions. Every dollar my parents had spent on Vanessa while telling me they were broke. 2021, $4,200. Vanessa's Finding Herself Fund after she dropped out. 2022, $8,900. Influencer equipment. Ring lights, cameras, editing software. 2023, $12,600. Lifestyle blogger website. Business coaching. 2024, $18,300. Wellness coach launch. More coaching. More equipment. More failed attempts. 2025, $23,400. Rent deposits Vanessa never paid back. Credit card payments. Bailouts. Total, $67,400. While I was saving $6,800 working 25 hours a week in chronic pain, my parents had given Vanessa $67,400. Clayton showed me a spreadsheet he'd made. On one side, payments to Vanessa. On the other side, my denied requests. Same weeks. Sometimes, same days. November 15th, 2024. Parents paid $2,100 for Vanessa's business coaching course. I'd asked for $2,000 for a pain specialist. Denied. We're broke. February 20th, 2025. Parents paid $850 for Vanessa's photo shoot. I'd asked for $1,440 for physical therapy. Denied. Not in the budget. June 10th, 2025. Parents bought Vanessa $600 worth of camera equipment. I'd asked for $600 for a better mattress. Denied. Luxury item. November 8th, 2025. Parents paid $600 toward Vanessa's credit card minimum. I'd asked for $85 for pain medication. Denied. Can't afford it. Same day. November 8th. Clayton highlighted that line. This is the one that's going to destroy them in court, he said. Same day. Documented, undeniable. But the worst one, the one that made me feel physically sick, was from August 2024. My parents had taken out a $15,000 home equity line of credit. A second mortgage? I'd asked them that month why they couldn't help me with surgery costs. They'd said, "We took out a second mortgage for house repairs. We're tapped out." The bank records showed where that $15,000 went. Vanessa's credit card debt. Every cent. They'd borrowed against their house to pay my sister's visa bill. Then they'd told me they couldn't afford to help me walk without pain. "I want you to understand something," Clayton said, closing the laptop. "This isn't about Vanessa needing help more than you. This is about your parents making a choice. They chose her comfort over your health. They chose her wants over your needs. And when you finally needed surgery so badly you were fainting, they didn't suddenly find money. They saw an opportunity." "What do you mean?" "They scheduled your surgery for February 10th. That gave them a 4 to 6 hour window when you'd be completely unconscious, completely unable to check your accounts or stop a transfer. They opened the joint account with Vanessa on December 28th, 43 days before your surgery. This wasn't desperation, Celestine. This was premeditation." I stared at him. "They delayed my surgery," I said slowly, "for 2 years, so they could time the theft." "I can't prove that," Clayton said. "But yes, I think that's exactly what they did." On February 11th, Clayton filed an emergency injunction with the Superior Court of San Mateo County. Judge Denise Morrison heard the case at 2:30 p.m. My parents showed up with a court-appointed attorney. They looked smaller than I remembered. My mom's eyes were red. My dad wouldn't look at anyone. Their attorney tried to argue it was a family dispute. Judge Morrison cut him off. "The victim was unconscious during surgery," she said. "This isn't a family dispute. This is criminal exploitation." She granted the injunction: full freeze on the joint account, full restitution within 72 hours. On February 13th, at 11 a.m., a wire transfer went through. From Patricia Lewis and Vanessa Lewis Joint Checking to Betty Lewis Educational Trust. Amount: $31,247.83, every last cent. Clayton called me that afternoon. "It's back," he said, "and I've added a security measure. Any withdrawal over $1,000 now requires my dual authorization. They can't touch it again." "What happens now?" I asked. "Now," Clayton said, "the district attorney decides whether to press criminal charges." On February 14th, Valentine's Day, which felt like some kind of cosmic joke, I was discharged from the hospital. Jordan picked me up, but she didn't drive me back to our dorm. "My parents want you to stay with us," she said, "just until you're recovered enough to manage stairs." "Jordan, I can't." "They already set up the guest room." I started crying in the passenger seat. Jordan reached over and squeezed my hand. "You're not a burden," she said. "You're family." The Matthews family lived in a 3-bedroom house in Redwood City, 15 minutes from campus. Jordan's dad, Robert, was a high school teacher. Her mom, Linda, was a nurse practitioner. Her little brother, Tyler, was 14. When we pulled into the driveway, Linda was waiting at the door. She hugged me carefully, mindful of my stitches. "We made up the guest room," she said. "Lavender sheets. I remember you said you liked lavender." I didn't remember saying that, but she remembered. Robert carried my post-op medications upstairs. Tyler hovered in the doorway, awkward and shy. "Do you like pizza?" he asked. "Mom's making your favorite for dinner." I didn't know what my favorite was. I'd never told them, but Linda had somehow figured it out. That night, after dinner, I went upstairs to the guest room. The sheets smelled like lavender. There was a glass of water on the nightstand, a heating pad for my back, a stack of books Tyler had pulled from his room because he thought I might be bored. I sat on the edge of the bed and cried for an hour. Not from pain, from realizing what a family was supposed to feel like. On February 20th, the district attorney's office filed criminal charges. Count 1, grand theft, felony. California Penal Code Section 487, over $25,000 stolen. Count 2, computer fraud, felony. California Penal Code Section 502, unauthorized access to computer systems. Count 3, wire fraud, federal. 18 U.S.C. Section 1343, electronic transfer of stolen funds. Count 4, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. California Welfare and Institutions Code, theft committed while victim was incapacitated during medical procedure. The assistant district attorney assigned to the case was a woman named Amanda Reeves. She specialized in financial exploitation cases. She called me on February 21st. "I want you to know," she said, "that we're taking this seriously. What your parents did wasn't just morally wrong, it was illegal, and we're going to make sure there are consequences." "What kind of consequences?" I asked. "Saying if they're convicted on all counts, they're looking at 2 to 4 years in state prison. But realistically, they'll take a plea deal. First-time offenders, no violence, full restitution already made. The judge will probably accept a suspended sentence with probation and conditions." "So they won't go to jail?" "Probably not. But they'll have a felony on their record. They'll be on probation for 5 years. And if they violate the terms, especially a no-contact order, they'll serve time. Does that feel like justice to you?" I thought about it. "I don't want them in jail," I said. "I just want them out of my life." "Then that's what we'll fight for," Amanda said. On February 25th, Vanessa was subpoenaed for a deposition. She hired an attorney. My parents paid the $3,500 retainer, another expense they suddenly found money for. On March 3rd, Vanessa sat in a conference room with her attorney, Amanda Reeves, Clayton Hughes, and a court reporter. Clayton sent me the transcript that evening. I read it in the Matthews guest room, sitting on the lavender sheets. Q. Did you know about the Betty Lewis Educational Trust? A. Yes. Mom told me about it. Q. When? A. I don't know. Maybe 2022 or 2023? Q. Did you ever discuss using that money? A. I might have mentioned to my parents that Celestine wouldn't notice if they borrowed a little. She's so busy with school. Q. You encouraged your parents to take money from your sister's trust? A. It wasn't like that. I just said. I needed help, and she had that money just sitting there. Q. You're 26 years old. You have no dependents, no disability. Why did you need your sister's college fund? A. I have debt. Q. Credit card debt from personal spending? A. Yeah. Q. How much did you know about the specific transfer on February 10th? A. Pause. Looks at attorney. I knew they were going to move some money that day. Q. While your sister was in surgery? A. I didn't think about the timing. Q. Did you think about her at all? A. No answer. I read that last line 3 times. Did you think about her at all? No answer. I picked up my phone. I'd had Vanessa's number blocked since the surgery. I unblocked it long enough to send one message. You're 26. You had choices. You chose this. Don't contact me again. Then I blocked her everywhere. Phone, email, Instagram, Facebook. I was done. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched my parents' world collapse from a distance. Clayton kept me updated. He said it was important I understood what was happening, even if I didn't want to be involved. My parents missed their March mortgage payment. First time in 30 years. Their credit cards were all maxed out. Minimum payments now totaled $1,800 a month. They couldn't make them. The home equity line of credit they'd taken out for Vanessa's debt, $15,000 at 8.9% interest, cost them over $1,300 a month in payments. My dad's credit score dropped from 680 to 590. Vanessa was still living with them, still unemployed, still contributing $0 to the household. The extended family had started taking sides. My dad's sister, Aunt Karen, called me. She apologized for not seeing what was happening sooner. She offered to help however she could. My mom's brother, Uncle James, called my parents and told them he wanted nothing to do with them anymore. "You're on your own now," he said. My 3 cousins, all of them around my age, stopped talking to my parents entirely. They sent me messages of support. The family was fracturing, and I wasn't the one breaking it. On March 10th, I got a letter in the mail. It was from my parents' attorney. Inside was a formal written apology. 3 paragraphs of, "We made a mistake," and "We never meant to hurt you." No mention of the 2 years they'd let me suffer. No mention of Vanessa's $67,400. No mention of the text message. "Do it now, while she can't check." Just legal language designed to reduce their sentence. I read it once. Then I walked downstairs to the Matthews living room. Robert was reading the newspaper. I held up the letter. "Can I use your fireplace?" I asked. He looked at the letter. He looked at me. Then he stood up and opened the fireplace grate. "Go ahead," he said. I held the letter over the flame, watched the edges curl and blacken, watched it burn. Jordan came downstairs and stood next to me. She didn't ask what I was burning. She just handed me the matches. "In case you want to do it again," she said. I laughed. Actually laughed. For the first time in weeks. The plea hearing was scheduled for March 18th. I didn't have to go. Amanda Reeves told me it was my choice, but I wanted to be there. I wanted to see it. Jordan drove me to the courthouse. She sat in the back row. Clayton sat next to me at the prosecution table. My parents walked in with their attorney, a man named Martin Kowalski. My mom looked like she'd aged 10 years. My dad wouldn't make eye contact. Judge Denise Morrison entered. Everyone stood. "This court is convened for the plea hearing in People v. Patricia Lewis and Daniel Lewis," she said. "The defendants are charged with felony grand theft, computer fraud, wire fraud, and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Mr. Kowalski, I understand your clients wish to enter a plea." "Yes, Your Honor. Both defendants plead guilty to count 1, grand theft, in exchange for dismissal of counts 2 through 4 and a suspended sentence contingent on full restitution and specific conditions." Judge Morrison leaned back in her chair. "Before I accept this plea, I'm going to review the evidence. Ms. Reeves, please summarize for the record." Amanda stood. She was calm, precise, devastating. "Your Honor, on February 10th, 2026, the victim, Celestine Lewis, was undergoing spinal fusion surgery. She had waited 2 years for this surgery, while her parents claimed they couldn't afford the $12,000 deductible. During the surgery, while Miss Lewis was under general anesthesia, the defendants accessed her trust account using credentials she had provided for emergencies. They transferred the entire balance, $31,247.83, to a joint account they had opened with their other daughter 43 days prior. She paused. "Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to read a text message sent on February 10th at 9:39 a.m. Proceed." Amanda pulled out a printed exhibit. She read slowly, clearly. Quote, "Do it now, while she can't check." End quote. Sent from defendant Patricia Lewis to defendant Daniel Lewis, 98 minutes after the victim was placed under anesthesia. The courtroom went silent. Judge Morrison looked at my parents. "Mrs. Lewis, you sent that text message knowing your daughter was unconscious during surgery?" My mom was crying. Yes, Your Honor, but we were going to. I'm not asking for explanations yet. Mr. Lewis, you received that text and then executed the transfer? My dad nodded. Yes, Your Honor. We thought. You thought your daughter, who was paralyzed on an operating table, wouldn't notice or couldn't stop you. Is that accurate? My dad looked down. We were desperate. Judge Morrison's expression hardened. Mr. Kowalski, I've been on this bench for 22 years. I've seen parents steal from children for drugs, for gambling, for their own survival. This is the first time I've seen parents steal from a child during surgery. The level of premeditation, the calculated timing, the exploitation of medical vulnerability. This is one of the most disturbing cases of family betrayal I've encountered. My mom started sobbing. Judge Morrison turned to me. Miss Lewis, you have the right to make a statement before I accept this plea. Would you like to speak? I stood up. Jordan had helped me practice. 3 minutes. Calm. No tears. Your Honor, my name is Celestine Lewis. I'm 21 years old. I'm a junior at State University, studying political science with plans to attend law school. On February 10th, I had spinal fusion surgery. I'd waited 2 years for that surgery because my parents told me they couldn't afford the deductible. I believed them. I worked 25 hours a week while taking a full course load, saving every dollar I could. I lived with chronic pain because I thought my family was doing their best. While I was unconscious, they stole the money my grandmother had protected for 15 years. My grandmother, Betty Lewis, died in 2021. Before she died, she told the attorney who set up my trust that she didn't trust my parents with money. She was right. What they took wasn't just money. It was my senior year. It was my law school applications. It was my grandmother's final gift to me. The gift of being able to finish what I started, no matter what. They timed the theft to my surgery because they thought I was too weak, too trusting, too pathetic to fight back. They were wrong. I've learned something in the past 5 weeks. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up. My parents didn't show up. They showed up to rob me. But other people showed up. My nurse, my grandmother's attorney, my best friend's family. They're my family now. I don't want my parents in jail. I don't want revenge. I want them to understand that what they did was unforgivable, that I will never speak to them again, and that the daughter they underestimated is going to build a life they'll never be part of. Thank you, Your Honor. I sat down. Jordan squeezed my shoulder from the row behind me. Judge Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke. I'm prepared to accept the plea agreement with the following conditions. Full restitution of $31,247.83 to the Betty Lewis Educational Trust, already completed. Additional restitution of $8,200 for the victim's legal fees. Additional restitution of $3,600 for medical costs, not covered by insurance. 5 years supervised probation. Permanent no-contact order. The defendants may not contact, directly or indirectly, Celestine Lewis. If the defendants violate the no-contact order or fail any payment, the suspended sentence becomes active. 16 months county jail. The defendants must complete financial counseling. This conviction remains on their permanent record. She looked at my parents. Do you understand these terms? Yes, Your Honor, they both said. Do you wish to say anything before I accept this plea? My mom turned toward me. We're so sorry, Celestine. We never meant to. I looked at Clayton. I don't want to hear it. Judge Morrison's voice cut through. Mrs. Lewis, Miss Lewis has made clear she doesn't wish to hear from you. That's her right, and you will respect it. She picked up her gavel. The court accepts the plea. This case is concluded. The gavel came down. My mom was still crying. My dad was staring at the table. Judge Morrison looked at me one more time. Miss Lewis, before you leave, I want you to know something. You handled this with more grace and dignity than most people twice your age. Your grandmother would be proud. I nodded. I couldn't speak. Then I stood up. Clayton held the courtroom door open for me. I walked out into the March sunshine. I didn't look back. It's been 2 weeks since the hearing. I'm still living with the Matthews family. Linda says I can stay as long as I want. Tyler's been teaching me to play video games. Robert's been teaching me chess. Jordan makes sure I do my physical therapy exercises. I went back to classes on March 25th. Reduced course load, 12 credits instead of 15. My professors have all been understanding. I'm on track to make Dean's List despite missing 6 weeks. The trust account balance is back to $31,247.83, plus the $8,200 my parents paid in legal fees, plus the $3,600 for medical costs. Total, $43,047.83. It's enough. For senior year. For law school applications. For the first semester at least. My parents have tried to contact me 14 times. Phone calls, all blocked. 23 text messages, all unread. 6 emails, filtered to spam. 2 handwritten letters, returned unopened. I don't read them. I don't respond. I don't engage. It's not anger. It's just nothing. They're strangers who happen to share my DNA. Vanessa tried to contact me through Instagram. 3 fake accounts. I blocked them all. She had mutual friends reach out on her behalf. I told those friends to stop. I'm not interested in reconciliation. I'm not interested in explanations. I'm done. But here's the thing I didn't expect. I'm okay. I'm more than okay. I have a 3.8 GPA. I have a job lined up this summer at Clayton's law firm. He offered me an internship in elder law. I have applications ready for law school, focusing on estate planning and elder abuse prevention. I have Jordan, who calls me her sister now. I have the Matthews family, who treat me like I've always belonged. I have professors who believe in me. I have a future that's mine. And I have Grandma Betty. I keep her photo on my desk now. She's younger in it, maybe 50, wearing a blue cardigan, smiling like she knows a secret. She did know a secret. She knew I'd need protection from my own family. She gave it to me 15 years before I knew I'd need it. On the back of the photo, there's a note in her handwriting. I found it when I was going through old boxes last week. For Celestine's 18th birthday, you are loved. You are protected. Always. Grandma. She wrote that in 2011. I was 6 years old. She saw what was coming. She built walls around me made of legal documents and trust structures, and an attorney who'd keep his promises even after she was gone. That's what love looks like. Not the kind that texts, "Do it now," while she can't check while you're on an operating table. The kind that protects you even from beyond the grave. The kind that makes sure you have a way out, even when you don't know you need one yet. I'm learning what real family looks like. It's Jordan bringing me coffee while I study. It's Linda making lavender sheets because she remembered I liked lavender. It's Robert holding the door while I burn apology letters I never asked for. It's Tyler teaching me video games because he wants me to laugh. It's Clayton Hughes driving to a hospital the second he saw an alert because he made a promise to my grandmother 15 years ago. My parents chose Vanessa. They chose her comfort over my health, her wants over my needs, her debt over my future. Fine. I choose me now. I choose the people who showed up. The people who protected me. The people who saw me as worth saving. And I choose to build a life where I help other people do the same thing. Where I help grandmothers set up trusts to protect grandchildren who don't know they need protecting yet. Where I help families create legal structures that can't be violated, even by the people who are supposed to love you most. I'm going to finish my senior year. I'm going to apply to law school. I'm going to specialize in elder law and estate planning. I'm going to make sure other kids have what I had, a grandmother who saw the future and built a fortress around it. On March 30th, I got my trust account statement in the mail. Balance: $43,047.83. Enough for senior year. Enough for law school applications. Enough to finish what Grandma Betty helped me start. I don't think about my parents anymore. Not the way I used to. I don't wonder why they didn't love me enough. I don't make excuses for them. I don't imagine reconciliation. I just know they're gone. And I'm free. Jordan's mom asked me last week if I wanted to stay through the summer. I started crying. Happy tears. The kind I didn't know existed before all this. That's what love looks like. Not the kind that steals from you while you sleep. The kind that holds the door open while you walk toward your future. The kind that says, "You're family now," and means it. The kind that a grandmother builds for you when you're 6 years old, knowing you'll need it when you're 21. I'm learning, and I'm going to be okay.